see the recording afterwards, including those that couldn't be with us. But I want to say, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them during the presentation. You don't have to wait to the very end. You could either type it in the chat box, or you could verbally say it, or you could wait to the end, whatever you're more comfortable with. And I hope to make this as helpful for you as possible. So on this slide, you will see our contact information. Besides me and career development, we also have Casey. So we're a two-person office. Our email address is at the top. It's a cd@gmercyu.edu. And our website, if you haven't been on our website, you do want to write this down, because there's a lot of good information that will help you land a job, help you land an internship, just help you figure out whatever career question you have. So it's the bottom link. It's gmercyu.edu/CD. And CD stands for career development. And tonight we're going to discuss a few things. Briefly about our services and resources, so you're familiar with how we can help you now and all the way through graduation and after graduation. I do want to make you aware of two things. We are completely a free service for Gwinnett alumni as well, so you can reach out to us after you graduate, and we're open during the summer. So if you need help at any point, we're there for you. We will also discuss what skills employers are looking for, because it's very important for you to know this, the skills they're looking for, because that will help you on your internship or job search. And then what transferable skills are you developing? So that's important as well, to be able to identify that, to be able to speak about it in an interview and be able to write about it on your resume. So let's jump into what services and resources career development offers students. We can help you with your resume and cover letter. You could schedule an appointment with us to have it reviewed. You could email it to us for review, whatever is easier on your end. And when I started this presentation, I mentioned that I know some of the challenges student athletes face, and one of those could be time. We do offer different times for appointments, whether it's in the evening, whether it's early morning. But worst case scenario for your resume, you can email it to us for review and we'll get it back to you. Some of you probably taken advantage of that already. We can assist you with your internship search, with your job search, whether that's connections, whether that's strategies, tips, career fairs, other things with employers. We have all sorts of benefits there. We can help you with your interview, and we do this a lot with students and alumni. You can do a practice interview with us over the phone. You could do a practice video interview with us, or we have an interview software product that I'll mention in a few minutes. We have job fairs, workshops, and events. Obviously, with everything that's going on since last March, everything's remote. We will have a number of career fairs that we are still engaged with the rest of this semester that will be remote. So please check out our events page. I'll show you that later on. And we also, I put this in bold to remind myself, to remind you, we have a student athlete guide on our website. Some of this information today is in this student athlete guide, but this guide is to help you with marketing your skills as a student athlete and just help you break it down on your resume, your cover letter, interviewing, and just helping you understand the transferable skills that you're developing and enhancing. So as you see at the bottom here, we are doing all virtual appointments. If you want to schedule an appointment, just drop me an email. Tell me what days and times work best for you. And let me know if you prefer a Zoom appointment, if you prefer a phone appointment, whatever is best option for you. I'm happy to accommodate you. So here's some other good websites. The first websites that our career development website that I mentioned earlier, Handshake. Some of you probably have been on Handshake. That is where all our internships and jobs are posted. And you will have access to any employer posted at any school around the country that's on Handshake. So there's a lot of positions on there. It's completely free. Even if you've never been on Handshake, you already have an account. Every Gwinnett student has an account already. It's the same login as your portal and email login. So if you go to the portal, just click the H for Handshake. If you go on our website, which is the top bullet here, you'll see a giant Handshake thing. You can get there from there, or you can just go straight to the URL right here too. Big interview. So if you want to do a practice interview by yourself with an AI, just go to Big Interview. It's completely free. And you will be asked a question by an AI, and you could record your interview answers and review them yourself to see how you did. You can share it with us in career development to analyze how you did, or you could share it with a faculty member or even a coach for them to review how you did too. So, three ways you could do a practice interview with us. It could be over a phone, it could be through Zoom with us, or you could do the big interview practice interviewing session. So please take advantage of that. And I do want to mention social media. We post a lot of great job fairs, straight up jobs and internships with companies on there, events, all sorts of things on a daily basis on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So if you're interested, follow us on there. So I messed up the transition on this slide. I don't know why it didn't work, but developing and enhancing skills as a student at Gwinnett. So never mind being a student athlete. So as a student, one of the best ways to do it is to be a student athlete. So what are some other ways? And you'll see the list here. Being involved with a student club on campus, being involved with organizations on or off campus. If anybody did the GSLI, the Griffin Student Leadership Institute, that should be on your resume. Volunteering and service is very important, will help you stand out versus the competition. Maybe depending upon your major, if you did a mission trip, if you're a nursing major, or alternative spring break. These are items too. Again, you're going up against a lot of people from other schools, the same major, similar backgrounds. What's going to help you stand out? Internships, depending upon your major, if you're an arts or science major or a business major, you absolutely should do one, probably two internships. And yes, there are remote internships. They're harder to come by, but they do exist. Jobs, that could be something that's, demonstrating some evidence with developing and enhancing skills, and even related courses and projects. So if you've taken a course that's related to your career goal and you did a cool presentation or a very thorough project, that could be something you list on your resume too. So before I go to the next slide, I do want to ask, so feel free to answer this. What are some skills employers are looking for? So put yourself in the shoes of an employer. What are some skills they're looking for? And just jump on and just say whatever you think. If you were hiring a student or a soon-to-be grad, what kind of skills would you be looking for?
Maybe like communication skills.
Absolutely. Communication skills.
Honesty.
Yep. That's a good one.
Work ethic.
Absolutely.
Leadership.
Yes. And that's a great one for a student athlete too. So let's scroll and see. So this list is not one that I made up. This is surveys done through employers. They list the top 10 to 15 skills they look for in college students or soon to be grads. And some of these on here are exactly what you said. And even if they're not exactly what you said, they fit into some of these words. So problem solving, communication, leadership, strong work ethic. Let's see, detailed oriented, multitasking is usually one, too. And these are all some that fit into being a student athlete. So now that you know some of the ones that employers are looking for that we just referenced, here's the list again if you want to take a look at it. I want you to go through, I'm going to bring up a document in a second. I want you to pick one or two skills from this list that you feel you have developed or enhanced as a student athlete, and then write an example that you when you use that skill. So for example, let's say you use leadership as one of them. Give an example of leadership that you provided as a student athlete as an example. So I'm going to stop the share here and bring up my Word document to show you here. Can everybody see this at the top? Okay. So you're going to choose one of these. I think I put like 8 different ones. Just choose one or two and then write an example of when you use that skill next to it, or on a piece of paper, or in your head if you have nothing with, no paper with you. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes here, 1 to 2 minutes, and just choose one or two and then write an example next to it. I'm gonna give you another 30, 40 seconds here. Okay, who wants to volunteer and share a skill and an example of utilizing that skill? Let's take a couple volunteers. Anybody want to volunteer?
I'll go. I would say for self-motivated, like as in the classroom, and also like on the field, try to work as hard as I can to better myself and for the team.
Actually, a great example because you demonstrated, I mean, obviously, if you're in an interview, you would expand upon this a little bit, but you also indirectly mentioned multitasking too and succeeding both on, you know, on the field and off the field too. I think that's a good one. Who else wants to share an example?
I'll go. I used leadership in I was captain for my high school baseball team.
All right, how did you do it? Give us an example, maybe a short example.
Being in charge, like making sure everybody does their lifts when we're in the weight room, and then if coach had a meeting or something at practice, us captains would run the practice.
Good one. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the advantages that student athletes have over so-called regular students is you have a chance to develop leadership skills. You know, if somebody's not involved with a student club or organization or is not a student athlete. So it's a very important skill that you are really developing and enhancing. All right, let's take one more example. Who wants to try one other than leadership skills or what was the other one we used? I forgot already. So something different than the first two.
Communication skills,
Okay.
because on the field we all have to talk to each other and communicate.
So let's say that's a good example, and I think that is another specific skill that student athletes really are strong at. So maybe you could talk about communicating in a team environment or in groups or communicating with the coach or the captains. So whenever you're telling a story, which we're going to get to in a second, just enhancing, add some more details. So that's a very good example. All right, let's head back to the PowerPoint here. So I would say, by the way, that list I just showed is in that student athlete packet, and it will help you with these next few steps that we're going to go over when you're putting together your resume or practicing an interview to go through that transferable skill list in our student athlete packet. So here's I'm glad I chose a baseball example here since there's a lot of baseball players here today, but here's an example of a one way. There's multiple ways you could do this on your resume, but here's one example of a way that you can do it on your resume. So you have the name of the sport, Gwinnett Mercer University. This person happens to be a pitcher and the captain. And then here are some examples of bullets. You don't have to have 3 bullets. You don't have to have any bullets, but I think it does help make more impact. So you could do something like selected as one of 2 captains and provide leadership to a team of more than 40 members. Participated in raising over $8,000 for a local cancer society. So I know oftentimes teams do fundraisers or some sort of service together or volunteering. Gained valuable leadership skills such as communication and problem solving. I like the idea of that last bullet. Let's say that you have a job that's not related to the field you want to get into. Think of the transferable skills you gained in that job and write about them on your resume. So that way you're making the reader aware of what skills you're have developed and what skills you have become strong at too. So why don't you take 2 minutes and try to write 2 bullets describing your responsibilities, your accomplishments, what you're learning, transferable skills on your own resume. Pretend this is your own resume. Use this one as a guide. It doesn't mean you have to base it off of anything like this. And this is a rough draft. Don't try to be perfect. Just write 1 or 2 bullets describing you and your own sport. Okay, who would like to try to, share an example of 1 bullet that you would, think you would have possibly on your resume? You're describing your sport, maybe what's an accomplishment, what's something you learned or a responsibility. Who would like to give it a try?
I can go. Promoted team cohesion on and off the playing field while competing in the Colonial States Athletic Conference and Atlantic East Conference.
I like that a lot. On your resume, I think that you probably, just to condense it slightly, you probably don't need to list the conference. If you received an award or some sort of honor, then you could do that. But for that bullet, I would just sort of end it before you do that. But that's a very strong statement. I like it a lot. And it's also nice and tight too. Great job. Would somebody else like to try as well? One more example. Is anybody a captain on here? Let's hear from a captain, maybe. Talk about your responsibilities as a captain.
I don't know that we have any captains just yet.
Okay.
But we're kind of figuring that out as we go.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me know. That's great.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, I can kind of speak, I guess, being a former student athlete and obviously being a coach now, that, a lot of this stuff too, it's like you said, you're kind of telling a story. So student athletes don't even realize all the skills that they're kind of gaining. And I think it was Michaela that just went and she talked about, team cohesion, what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. I mean, once you get in the interview room and they ask you those questions, being able to talk about, like, whatever it is, whether it's, hey, we were down 6 runs in the last inning and we had to come back, or, so-and-so was kind of causing some problems on the team. We had to deal with that. All those little day-to-day things that guys, and girls don't really think about, but those are all the skills that people are looking for when it comes time to interview. So being able to verbalize that and let them know that, listen, I was a part of a team, and yes, everyone talks about teamwork and leadership and everything like that, but the little day-to-day things, like, you understand how to work with a group of people. You understand that there's things that need to be done that you don't necessarily want to do, and you still do them for the greater good. All those skills, being able to verbalize that's what's really important.
Great stuff, Coach. Thank you. Yeah, some great insight into what we're going to get into in a few minutes too, about storytelling using your student athlete background. It gives you an advantage, I think, when interviewing and discussing your skills. Continuing with your resume, I like the idea, in your intro section, so probably your top section that goes underneath your name on your resume, whether you have an objective, a qualifications, a summary, a profile, there's all different terms. You'll see our sample resumes on our website. So maybe take a look at them and see which one speaks to you the most. But here is one example about a student athlete specifically. And this is probably leans more towards a profile or qualifications, but the opening statement says, highly creative individual with extensive leadership experience seeking a position in the field of marketing. So the person, might be a marketing major probably, or communications major. Strengths include, and then you can have, 2 to 4 bullets that are your top traits. The top one says, student athlete who devote an average of 30 hours per week, training, practices, meetings, travel, and so forth, also excelling in the classroom. The second bullet focuses a little bit more on skills too, self-motivated, energetic, able to take on new challenges. And before I move on, one thing I want to mention is make sure you know what skills your future job that you'll want is looking for. One of the best ways to do that is to read job descriptions, because oftentimes in job descriptions, the employer will list qualifications, skills, traits they're looking for in a candidate. If you have some of them, include that language on your resume, include that language during your interview discussion too. And then when it meets together with what you are gaining as a student athlete, that's a great, powerful bullet description you could have. The third bullet, dynamic leader, communicates well in team environments and excels at multitasking. I feel the majority of student athletes do fit that. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to kind of try to write one bullet here. And these are sort of like generic bullets. It's a little different than the previous slide. The previous slide was specific to your sport. Now this is speaking more from you being a student athlete. Pretend that an employer is going to see this. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to try to create a rough draft of one bullet. Okay, before I ask somebody to share an example, I do want to mention student athletes. I think that speaking for your resume, try to have a section that's more creative. Yes, it's pretty common for people to have an objective, but I think if you want to stand out, and that's the key here, stand out versus the competition, sort of like on the field, it's kind of nice to do something that's different, that's more impactful. Something like this will be a lot stronger than just having a 1 or 2 sentence of what I like to say is fluff, like an objective on there. So have something that's a little bit stronger, that offers a little bit insight and showcases your top traits to the employer, like something like this could potentially do. With that said, who would like to share a rough draft? Nobody's holding you to a perfect bullet here. Who would like to share what you have so far? What's an idea you may have for what you would include? Anybody want to take the chance and go? Does everybody understand this section? Do you have any questions on it? Okay, one thing I want to mention about resume writing too before we move on. Take a look at our samples on our website. We have that student athlete resume on our website, but take a look at, we have resumes based off of specific majors on our website too. Take a look at them. You could see different formats. You could see how content is written too. That will help you update your resume, help you strengthen your resume. And then, myself or Case, you'll be happy to sit down with you one-on-one or review it through email. So please take the time to update it, and we'll help you out, because it's better to have it ready to go than trying to rush and do it the last second when you do need it for an internship or a job. let's move on to interviewing here. So you completed the first two steps. You identified some of your transferable skills. Again, refer back to the student athlete guide if you want to finish this step. You're including this stuff on your resume, so you want to do that next. Now you need to know how to communicate being a student athlete during a job or internship interview. I think this helps you, be able to be better at storytelling, sharing specific examples too, and that's the whole key to that. So here's two questions that examples that you could use your student athlete background when answering an interview question. So the first question, and this is a very common interview question: what are some of your strengths? Also, what are your weaknesses is a common question too. But this one says, I feel that athletics has really shaped me into the individual I am today. I am hardworking and as a result was a starter on the soccer team all 4 years. I'm a dedicated person and demonstrated this several times by staying late after practice to work on skills. And then it goes on to mention, multitasking, juggling priorities, and having strong time management. So that's a way to sort of focus on your student athlete background for that answer. You feel free to also mix in if you did an internship or clinical rotations or anything like that at your job with your student athletic experience to make this answer even stronger. And the bottom one, what can you bring to this company? Or another way of asking this is, why should we hire you? You could say something like, I'm a team player, I work well under pressure, and I'm a quick learner. I bring a hardworking attitude that will enable me to perform at a high level. And then it goes on to mentioning rarely missing a class, a game, or practice, and you're confident you can handle the job and succeed on the job. So these are two examples of how you can use your background as a student athlete to answer interviewing questions. These next few examples I want to show you this will give you an edge when telling stories that we mentioned earlier, that Coach mentioned earlier too. So during the course of an interview, you will be asked what I call and others call behavioral interviewing questions. The employer is trying to figure out how you handled a past situation because they believe the way you handle that past circumstance is probably going to be the way you handle it in the future. So they may ask a question that starts with, tell me about a time when you, or give an example of, so they're forcing you to tell a story or share an example. You have to be able to do that. And that bullet at the bottom says, these questions are often related to those transferable skills that we mentioned earlier. And here's a way of doing that. This should make your life easier. By the way, this information is in our interviewing packet. Feel free to refer to that if you're looking for the specific details here or more information. But when answering a question, when you have to provide a story, use the SAR technique, just SAR, 3 steps. The S is the situation, what's going on, what happened, the action, what role did you take, what action did you take, the result, a positive result. Always have a positive result unless they ask you a question like, tell me about a time when you failed at something or something about failure. But even that question at the end, you kind of want to let them know what you learned from it, why you'll maybe avoid that mistake in the future and so forth. But most of the time, you definitely want to have a positive result to kind of end on a good note. Here's an example of a behavioral question for a student athlete. Tell me about a time when you effectively juggled several different priorities at one time. And as student athletes, you're all doing that. A lot of different priorities, a lot of multitasking. So this example, here's the situation. Being a member of the track team at Gwinnett demanded anywhere from 20 to 30 hours per week of my time. Here's the action. In addition to being an active participant on the team during practices and games, we were also required to train on our own. I attended my classes and never missed a homework deadline, even when the team was traveling. The results, good GPA, you can add more information there too. So the SAR just helps you keep an organized flow from when you're telling a story, and also think it helps you make it easier for you. So go back when you're done with this, when you have time to work on all of this, work on that transferable skills sheet that I showed you in our student athlete guide, and first identify the skills that you feel you have strengthened as a student athlete, and then tell stories about them. That will help you be more effective interviewer. So I want all of you to try one of these questions. Pick either one and use the SAR technique, the situation, the action, the result, when answering this. So either choose one, tell me about a time when you worked effectively under pressure, or two, give an example of when you demonstrated excellent communication or leadership skills. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, answer one of them to the best you can, and try to think of a specific example. All right, one more minute. Okay, would somebody like to volunteer the question you chose and your answer? I know this was rough draft, but I think it's kind of good to be put on the spot here. Who would like to give it a shot?
I'll go again.
Sounds great. What question did you choose?
Tell me about time when you worked effectively under pressure.
Okay.
So there was like an example, like my freshman year here, that I came into a game that we were still kind of in with bases loaded and 2 outs, and literally was able to get the guy to ground back out to me and get out of the inning.
So let's think of a couple questions here. What were you thinking that what you needed to do, and how did you give yourself the ability to do it, to accomplish that, to have a positive result?
So I would say like just going out there with like a calm mind and not really thinking into being put in of such a big spot kind of helps you a lot more. And then just being able to throw strikes is the ability to throw strikes was just a key in that situation.
That's good. So now think of this when you're at a job interview, and if, let's say you're asked a question like that, you could say, with your ability to remain calm in a difficult circumstance will help you in this job. And then you can share that example of, your baseball example. So that's how you kind of merge the two and demonstrate to them, yes, I will succeed in a high pressure environment because I have demonstrated that both on and off the field. Did anybody try question 2? I'd like to share their example. Question 2.
I'll go again.
Connor Boyd, did you try question number 2?
Yeah, I can go for this one.
There you go.
So leadership skills, I guess you could say when the freshmen got on campus this year, I kind of went out of my way to welcome them to the team, like invited them to hang out with us sometimes, like stuff like that. Just try to get like a closer knit, come more of like a family.
So that's a great example. What this shows you, like if you were doing an interview, Connor, what you would do is, well, use the SAR technique, be a little bit more thorough with the situation, the action that you took, when did you meet with them? How'd you schedule it? What was the result? Yes, a closer bond between the team. So you want to use a little bit of all three, and maybe even mix in some other things like skills that you utilize. So that's a good start though. So what I tell, especially student athletes and all students though, is you want to think of, I would say 5 to 7 stories that are positive stories from your experiences that you could talk about during an interview. Because if you think of these 5 to 7 stories, lots of these stories will fit into multiple questions. So you don't have to practice 30 questions. They're not going to ask you 30 behavioral questions. So it'll be easier for you to have a successful interview by doing it that way. So before I move on, I want to mention that a little bit more on interviewing. Remember, if you want to do a practice interview, whether it's next week, whether it's in the summertime, whenever it may be, go on Big Interview if you want to try it on your own. Email me to schedule an appointment. We could do a video or phone interview. I think it's important to practice interviewing because think back to whenever you give a class presentation. If you practiced and you felt well prepared, you felt more confident and yet you probably had less slip ups. If you showed up and you didn't really practice, you probably were not as confident. You probably made a little bit more mistakes. The same applies to an interview too. So it's very, very important to be ready for it and to put the time in, and then you will succeed.
Connor, that was a good job of hitting number 1 too, executing under pressure.
Some next steps for all of you. I'm a big person into action steps and next steps. So use the information that we discussed tonight and update or strengthen your resume, and then have it reviewed. Some of you might have to do a total revamp of your resume, start from scratch. Maybe some of you are just have to add a few things here and there. But either way, when you're ready, have it reviewed, email it to me. I'll be happy to go over it. The second bullet is more about the skills that you need to learn, the need to develop. So I mentioned reading job descriptions of the field you want to get into. Start identifying what skills you need to improve, and then try to improve upon them, whether you're as a student athlete or during an internship or a job, whatever it may be, because then if you know those skills are important to that job, then you can have them. You can be at least moderate to strong with them. The bottom one, just again to recap, we'd be absolutely happy to help you, whether it's your resume or cover letter. We didn't go over cover letter writing today, and interviewing too, when it's related to these transferable skills. Here's how you get to our events page. If you want to see upcoming workshops, and we have a number of them, including one specifically just on resume writing, a lot more in depth than the one tonight. One specifically just on interviewing, one on professionalism in the workplace, whether it's an internship or a job, and one on navigating a virtual career fair, because we will be having, whether we're co-hosting or hosting, a number of virtual career fairs the rest of this semester. So if you go to our events page and you click on careers, you'll see what we have coming up. I think starting next week, we basically have one per week. So you'll see them on there. Also on the bottom, if you go to that handshake page that I mentioned earlier, there's a number of career fairs off campus on that page too. So besides posting jobs and internships, you will see a lot of neat events that are related to your field on there. So I want to save some time for any questions you have about anything we discussed tonight, whether it's transferable skills in general, applying them on your resume or an interview. And I left our contact information on here too. Does anybody have any questions? Did you find it helpful for you to help understand the whole transferable skills and then discussing them as a student athlete?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's very helpful.
So I'm going to go back to those next steps just to kind of give you one last look, especially the first two. But when you get a chance, I know everybody's busy, whether, sports are sort of delayed or not, but I think it's important to, when you have a chance, to update your resume, because again, with my experience being at Gwinnett for 13 years, when you're rushing to get it done, you're more prone to errors, and you don't want to come across as being sloppy and careless. So you definitely want to take your time updating it and then having it reviewed. One last chance. Any questions for me?
Nick, I thought this was really good. And I think at the same time, you're just scratching the surface of a lot of this stuff. Just going through the process myself, I understand that this is really important. And at the same time, it can give us a big advantage once we get in the room. So, guys, I encourage you to use these resources, especially the mock interviews. The more you practice, obviously, the better you get. But on behalf of the baseball team, Nick, just want to thank you for your time tonight and kind of going over this stuff with us. So we appreciate it.
And thanks to all of you for attending tonight. I know you have a lot going on too. And if there's any way I can help you in the future, just feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to help you.
Thanks, Nick.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
Hey, thanks, Nick. Stay safe.